Welcome to Stats Madness. Joining me today is Frank Hardy. Chelsea lost 1-3 to Nottingham Forest. With this result, Chelsea is 9th on 48 points, Nottingham 16th on 39 points. Let's start with how Chelsea's defence faltered. Chelsea's defence was under scrutiny, yet they dominated possession. What does the data reveal?
Despite Chelsea's 67% possession, they lost 1-3. They outshot Forest 21-6, yet Forest's 3 big chances overshadowed Chelsea's 2. Chelsea's 5 shots on target barely edged Forest's 4. It's a classic case where dominating stats didn't translate into goals, highlighting Forest's clinical execution.
Despite Chelsea's possession dominance, let's dive deeper. How do they fare in key categories?
Chelsea excelled in attack with a 73.5 rating compared to Forest's 38.4, a 31% edge. However, defensively, Forest led with 63.6 versus Chelsea's 28.7, a 38% advantage. Chelsea also controlled possession at 67.9 against Forest's 36.6, showing a 30% superiority. These pillars highlight Chelsea's attacking potential but defensive vulnerability.
Given Chelsea's possession control, let's dissect the tactical details. How did their offensive and defensive stats compare to Nottingham Forest?
Chelsea dominated offensive metrics with 21 shots to Forest's 6, and 12 shots inside the box compared to Forest's 6. However, defensively, Forest excelled with 22 tackles against Chelsea's 14. Forest's 8 blocks versus Chelsea's 1 showcases their defensive resilience.
Wait, really? And despite that, how did cross accuracy factor into Chelsea's play?
Chelsea's possession prowess translated to 33 total crosses, dwarfing Forest's 4. Crucially, they managed 9 accurate crosses, while Forest had just 1. This highlights Chelsea's ability to maintain offensive pressure even when trailing in goals scored.
Considering Chelsea's cross accuracy, I'm curious about how their momentum shifted during different match intervals. What stood out to you?
Chelsea's momentum was remarkable, especially in the 75-90 window. They fired 8 shots and sent in 14 crosses, with 4 being accurate. Their possession surged to 66.9%, and they completed a staggering 161 successful passes. This late-game pressure was crucial, contrasting sharply with their slower start and showcasing Chelsea's ability to dominate as time progressed.
Given Chelsea's strong late-game momentum, how did their performance today compare to their season averages?
Chelsea excelled in total crosses with 33, significantly above their season average of 18.18. They also had 9 accurate crosses, well beyond their typical 3.74. Inside the box, they managed 12 shots, surpassing their usual 9.21. However, interceptions fell short at 6 compared to 9.68. Shots on target was a modest improvement at 5, while big chances created were slightly down at 2, below the 2.85 average.
So Chelsea's crosses were a highlight today. How does their league standing reflect their identity this season?
Chelsea's shots on target, at 5 today, outperformed their season average of 4.44, sitting in the top 37% league-wide. However, their interceptions have declined, only reaching 6 compared to a season average of 9.68, which is usually well above the league norm of 8.06.
Interesting. So their attacking play is strong, but defensive metrics are slipping.
Exactly. Their total crosses at 33 today show significant improvement, outpacing a league average of 18.12. Yet, their decline in interceptions, a critical defensive metric, indicates an identity crisis in maintaining defensive intensity.
So Chelsea's identity is shifting, but how do they stack up against their closest peers in the mid-8?
Chelsea shines in ball possession with a 58.06% average, ahead of teams like Brighton. In shots total, their 13.68 average also leads peers such as Leeds. However, they lag in long passes, averaging 45.85, below Brentford's 57.86. Notably, Chelsea excels in big chances created with an average of 2.85, outperforming Newcastle's 2.52.
Frank, we just compared Chelsea with their mid-8 peers, but how does Nottingham Forest fare against their season averages?
Nottingham Forest excelled in blocks today with 8.0 compared to their 3.97 average. They managed just 6.0 shots total, notably down from 12.56. Tackles were impressive at 22, surpassing their 16.76 norm. Saves increased to 4.0, above the usual 2.71. Finally, big chances created hit 3.0, exceeding their 1.67 average. Nottingham's defensive efforts stand out.
Frank, Nottingham Forest's defensive strength was clear earlier, but how are they shaping up in league standings overall?
Nottingham Forest exhibits a unique identity with their blocks, now at 8, far above the league average of 3.65. Remarkably, their big chances created also reached 3 today, despite trailing the league's 2.27 average.
Wait, really? They created more big chances than usual? Does this reflect their overall tactical approach?
Absolutely. However, their successful long passes dropped to 15, from a season average of 22.38, indicating potential tactical shifts. yet tackles hit 22, surpassing their 16.7 league average, emphasizing defensive prowess.
Nottingham Forest's league position is fascinating, but how do they stack up against their bottom six peers?
Nottingham Forest's big chances created average of 1.67 is below Crystal Palace's 2.56. However, they lead in shots total with a 12.56 average, ahead of Tottenham's 11.17. Their ball possession percent of 47.09 surpasses Wolverhampton's 43.91. Still, they lag in long passes at 51.38 compared to Burnley's 56.0.
Given Nottingham Forest's ball possession edge over Wolverhampton, let's shift to individual performances. Who shone brightest on the field?
Taiwo Awoniyi was the standout in the forward line, with a dominant 8.52 rating, one of the highest on the pitch. Enzo Fernandez impressed for Chelsea, earning a 7.53. Mats Sells excelled in goal for Nottingham Forest with a 7.4. Delane Bakwa in midfield also delivered with a 7.36, while Igor Jesus added a solid 7.16 up front.
With those impressive ratings in mind, how did Taiwo Awoniyi's stats compare to his season averages?
Taiwo Awoniyi was on fire, hitting an 8.52 rating, far above his 6.81 season average. His 17 touches were a personal best, smashing the 9.38 average. He also excelled with 2 shots on target and total, both above his 1.5 seasonal mark. Awoniyi truly stepped up.
So, Taiwo Awoniyi's performance certainly broke his usual pattern, but how does he stack up against the rest of the league?
Awoniyi shines in goals, ranking in the top 16% for strikers with 2 goals against a 1.15 league average. However, his 17 touches place him in the bottom 13%, with a league benchmark of 19.3. He also lags in total shots, scoring 2 against a 2.08 average. On a brighter note, his shots on target are strong, ranking in the top 44%.
It's clear Awoniyi's league standing has its ups and downs, but how does he compare specifically to his positional peers?
Awoniyi excels in goals, averaging 1.33 compared to the peer average of 1.21, leading striker Igor Thiago's 1.2. However, his touches average of 9.38 is significantly lower than Matheus Cunha's 34.1. In terms of shots, he trails with 1.5, compared to Erling Haaland's 2.9. Even his shots on target fall short at 1.4, behind Haaland's 1.7.
Awoniyi's peer comparison was insightful, but how does Enzo Fernandez stack up against his own season averages?
Enzo Fernandez maintained a solid rating of 7.53, just above his 7.25 average. He excelled in key passes with 7.0, a personal best against his 2.41 average. However, he struggled with duels won, managing only 1.0 compared to his 4.06 norm. Ball recovery was consistent at 4.0, and his passes in final third improved significantly to 12.0 from an 8.39 average.
Enzo's season averages are one thing, but how does he stand against the league benchmarks?
Enzo Fernandez is exceptional in key passes, ranking in the top 2% of midfielders with 7.0 per game, compared to the league average of 1.48. He's also impressive in passes in final third, placing in the top 16% with 12.0 per match, while the league norm is just 4.31. These numbers highlight his ability to influence the game offensively, making him a standout performer in the league.
Enzo's league performance was impressive, but let's switch gears to Mats Sells. How does he compare to his season averages?
Mats Sells showed strong performance with 4.0 saves, surpassing his season average of 3.04. His rating held steady at 7.4, aligning with his typical 6.78. In long balls, he excelled with 21.0, notably above his usual 16.07. He also made 3.0 saves inside the box compared to his average of 2.04, highlighting his consistent defensive contributions.
Mats Sells' season averages were notable, but how does he stack up in league standings across key metrics?
Mats Sells is impressive in saves, ranking in the top 41% among goalkeepers with 4.0 saves per game, above the 2.9 league average. However, his punches and accurate passes percentage are areas of concern. Punches sit in the bottom 19% with 0.0 versus the 1.41 benchmark, and accurate passes percentage is in the bottom 20% at 50.0% compared to the 64.82 league standard.
After Mats Sells, let's pivot to Delane Bakwa. Compared to his season averages, how did his recent performance fare?
Delane Bakwa stood out with a rating of 7.36, exceeding his season average of 6.68. His touches were also above par at 29 compared to the usual 23. He maintained consistency in assists with 1.0, matching his average. Impressively, he created 2.0 chances, surpassing the 1.43 seasonal benchmark. These numbers underline his significant impact.
Speaking of benchmarks, Igor Jesus had quite a performance. How does his latest match compare to his season stats?
Igor Jesus maintained his consistency with 1.0 goals, matching his average. His rating was solid at 7.16, slightly above the season's 6.79. But the standout was his shots on target, 2.0, beating his seasonal average of 1.2. This highlights his growing accuracy and pivotal role.
Reflecting on Igor Jesus's consistency, Nottingham Forest's 3-1 victory showcased tactical brilliance. Chelsea's 67% possession was pivotal in shaping the battle. Huge thanks to Frank Hardy for his insights today. Thanks for tuning in to Stats Madness, and see you next time.